The Stand for Justice. Marcus's fight against police injustice. The streets of New York City were buzzing with the usual energy of a busy morning. Marcus, in his old blue sedan, navigated through the traffic, the weight of the morning's meeting still fresh in his mind. He had just come from a session with the New York Empowerment Alliance, a community group dedicated to helping people understand their rights and fight against injustice. The conversation had been powerful, urging everyone to stand firm in the face of oppression. Marcus had left the meeting inspired, determined to keep fighting for fairness in a world that often seemed unfair. As he drove, his mind replayed the words of the meeting, "Speak up against injustice." But he never expected that day, fate would throw him into the heart of a battle for his own rights. Suddenly, the shrill sound of sirens cut through his thoughts. Flashing red and blue lights appeared in his rearview mirror, blinding him for a moment. He immediately pulled over to the side of the road, confusion swirling in his mind. What could this be about? He had been driving within the speed limit, or at least he thought he had. A police car parked behind him, and a tall officer stepped out. His name tag read, Officer Blake Jenkins, his serious demeanor causing a knot to form in Marcus's stomach. He adjusted in his seat, trying to stay calm. What could this be about? Officer Jenkins approached the car, his boots clicking sharply against the pavement. Without a word, he tapped on the window. Marcus slowly rolled it down, his nerves creeping up. "What's going on, officer?" he asked, trying to stay polite but confused. "You were speeding," Jenkins barked, his tone sharp and commanding. "License and registration." Marcus's irritation flared. He knew he hadn't been speeding. "Officer, I don't think I was speeding. I was just going with the flow of traffic," he replied, his voice steady but firm. Jenkins's expression darkened. "You think you know the law better than me?" His words dripped with sarcasm. "Get out of the car." Marcus hesitated. "I'm not getting out until I know what I'm being accused of. You can't just pull me out for no reason." The officer's anger boiled over. "You don't tell me what to do. Get out of the car now." In one swift motion, Jenkins yanked the door open and forced Marcus out. Passersby began to stare. Some even pulled out their phones to record the scene. Marcus's face burned with humiliation, but he held his ground. "I'm standing up for my rights," he reminded himself, even as Jenkins pushed him against the car. "What's your badge number?" Marcus demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. Jenkins didn't respond. Instead, he shoved Marcus harder, his anger rising. "You think you can challenge me?" he shouted. The tension in the air was thick, and Marcus could feel the eyes of the growing crowd on him. Then, a voice broke through the chaos. "Hey, leave him alone. He's just standing up for himself." It was Jasmine, a woman who had been shopping nearby. She stood tall, her phone raised high. "You can't treat people like this." Jenkins spun around, his face twisted in rage. "Mind your business," he snapped. But Jasmine didn't back down. "What's your badge number, officer?" "What's your name?" she demanded, her voice unwavering. The crowd began to swell, people gathering around, filming, shouting their support for Marcus. The officer felt the weight of the pressure building. He couldn't control the situation any longer. His usual intimidation tactics were falling flat. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath, but his confidence had already been shattered. The crowd was no longer on his side. Just then, a voice rang out over the commotion. "Officer Jenkins, what's going on here?" It was Agent Evelyn Grant, a calm but commanding figure from the FBI. She had been passing by when she saw the scene unfolding. Jenkins took a step back, caught off guard by her presence. "I'm just doing my job," he stammered, suddenly feeling small in front of someone with higher authority. Agent Grant looked directly at Marcus before addressing Jenkins. "Is this how you do your job? By humiliating citizens and pulling them out of their cars?" The crowd murmured in agreement, the tension finally shifting in Marcus's favor. Jenkins swallowed hard. "I didn't know he was a federal agent," he mumbled, his voice faltering. Agent Grant raised an eyebrow, her gaze sharp. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice cold. Marcus stood straighter, his anger turning into determination. "I'm an FBI agent, and this is a violation of my rights." Jenkins's face turned a deep shade of red as the crowd erupted in disbelief. He had made a grave mistake. But it was too late to undo what had been done. The crowd, now disillusioned with the officer, began to disperse, their murmurs of support for Marcus filling the air. As the tension started to ease, Agent Grant turned to Marcus. "Let's take this to the precinct," she said, her voice resolute. "You deserve respect, and we'll make sure this doesn't go unreported." The drive to the precinct was quiet, but Marcus felt a mix of anger and relief. He had stood up for himself today, but he knew this was only the beginning. The fight for justice wasn't over yet. At the precinct, the air was filled with the noise of ringing phones and officers shuffling paperwork. Agent Grant turned to Marcus. "You did well out there, but we need to follow the proper procedures. We're going to file a formal complaint against Officer Jenkins." Marcus nodded, his mind still racing. This isn't just about me, he thought. It's about everyone who's been treated unfairly. They walked to a small office, where Lieutenant Jonah Morris, a friendly officer with a no-nonsense attitude, was waiting. Agent Grant quickly explained the situation. Lieutenant Morris nodded, his face serious. "I'll help you file a formal complaint against Officer Jenkins. This isn't how we want our department to be seen." As they went through the paperwork, Marcus felt a new sense of purpose. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone who had faced injustice. That evening, as Marcus returned home, his mind replayed the events of the day. He found his roommate, Tyler, lounging on the couch playing video games. "You look like you just got into a fight," Tyler said, pausing his game. Marcus sat down next to him with a deep breath. "You could say that," he replied. "I had a run-in with a cop today. He pulled me out of my car for no reason." Tyler's eyes widened. "What? That's insane. Did you call the police?" Marcus shook his head. "I went to the precinct with an FBI agent. We're filing a complaint against him. I'm not letting this go." Tyler's expression shifted to admiration. "Good for you. People need to know they can stand up against injustice." "I can't believe you're an FBI agent now." "It's more than that," Marcus explained. "It's about making sure this doesn't happen again. We have to hold them accountable." Over the next few days, the story spread like wildfire. Local news outlets picked up the incident, and Marcus became the face of a movement for change. Messages from people who had faced similar experiences flooded his inbox, thanking him for speaking out. One afternoon, while scrolling through social media, Marcus came across a post from a group called Citizens for Justice. They were organizing a rally to demand accountability from the police force. Marcus's heart raced with excitement. "This is it," he said to Tyler. "This is what we need. Are you going to speak?" Tyler asked, intrigued. "Absolutely," Marcus replied, his eyes burning with determination. "I'll share my story and encourage others to share theirs." The day of the rally arrived, and Marcus stood before a sea of people, each holding signs that read "Justice for all" and "Stand up for your rights." The energy in the air was electric, the voices united for a common cause. As Marcus took the stage, he felt the weight of the moment. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "I stand before you not just as a citizen, but as someone who believes in the power of standing up against injustice. Recently, I faced unfair treatment from a police officer, but I refuse to let that define me or anyone else." The crowd erupted in cheers, the energy in the air palpable. "We must unite, share our stories, and demand change. It's time for justice." After the rally, people approached Marcus, thanking him for his courage. He felt a sense of community that he hadn't known before. Together, they could fight for their rights and demand respect. As the day ended, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The fight for justice was far from over, but he had taken the first step, and he wouldn't stop until the world knew that standing up for your rights was worth the fight.